It's always exciting when a talented director ventures into the horror realm for the first time, and Ryan Coogler brings a party of talented people with him into his vampire film Sinners. It's not just about blood-sucking fiends though, so let's hunker down, discuss the film, and maybe we'll survive till sunrise. Welcome everyone to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me, as always, is Tim.
Hello, thank you for having me.
I know, so generous of me to keep inviting you back.
Inviting me in?
Yes, inviting you in, yes, very good, yes. We're doing a vampire movie. Slight little reference. This is a horror movie podcast. We get together and we talk about a movie. It's that simple. And today we are talking about kind of the big hot new release, which is Sinners, the Ryan Coogler directed movie. I mean, that was kind of notable in and of itself when they announced that he was doing a horror movie. But yeah, him, Michael B. Jordan, plus a few other faces we'll get into once we start getting into details a bit more. But this is a vampire film. It is a period piece set in 1932. We will start spoiler-free, of course, as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we get into the spoilers. And, of course, if you are enjoying the show on YouTube, please do hit the like button on YouTube. Helps us out a bunch if you do. And you can get bonus content and help support the show over at Patreon. But I'll tell you more about that at the end of the episode. I think what stuck out to me going into this, right, and not really knowing much other than it's a vampire movie, is I remember the trailer kind of not really, like, because I knew it was a vampire movie, I could recognize a couple of quick things in the trailer that suggested that. But I don't think the trailer, like, made it overtly clear it was about vampires. If you didn't already know that, you know, there was a couple of quick flashes of violence, or like maybe like a face that looked kind of, you know, menacing or bloody or whatever. But for the most part, it was kind of like, hey, period piece, lots of like blues music. Michael B. Jordan's playing two roles. he's twins. So, you know, that was kind of what the movie felt like. It was, at least the first trailer. I never saw any second or trailers later, but the first trailer definitely kept it pretty close to the chest.
Yeah, and I don't even really remember seeing a trailer for it. Like, I'm sure I probably saw it like at least once, but going into it, honestly, I remembered very little. And yeah, I honestly, I don't think I would have known much about it except for, like, I remember, I think we looked at the synopsis when we did, like, you know, our 2025 preview episode. But even then, like, I didn't start remembering things until, like, you know, I was actually watching it. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Like, I forgot Michael B. Jordan plays two characters and stuff in this. And I would say if, you know, there are, you know, people that haven't seen it yet, I mean, yeah, we'll do spoiler-free stuff, but, like, I don't know, like, I feel like, you know, go in as cold as you can, because, like, yeah, I don't know, I was pretty happy, like, not knowing a lot of stuff, you know, going in beforehand. I thought that it helped.
Yeah, it's not a twisted turning movie or anything, but it's
No.
To be fair though, I don't think a lot of the marketing spoils much, so I feel like it's quite easy to go.
Oh, not at all. Yeah.
Unless you like have someone spoil it for you, I don't think there's any reason why you should know too much going into it. Yeah, but the big thing, of course, is that this reviewed very well. It was getting a lot of praise. It's also doing very well financially. In fact, it did something pretty rare in that its second weekend at the US box office only dropped about 4.8% from the previous weekend. And that is insane. Normally, movies open one weekend and then the next weekend they go down by at least 50%. Like, that's usually how it works. Sometimes for the big blockbusters, it's even more. You'll get a movie opening at $200 million, and then the following week it's down to 50. So that's like a huge, like, 75% drop.
And it's so funny because, like, you're seeing, like, all these places, you know, writing these articles or making headlines about it, and they're all like, oh, like, what's the secret to this movie? Why is it doing so well? And it's like, I don't know, maybe if you let talented people, like, make an original movie, people want to see it. Like, I feel like all those things are kind of like, wow, like, this movie's making so much money and it's not, like, based off a comic book or, like, a video game or a sequel or something. That's like, how is that possible? It's like, no, like, yeah, people want, like, original, new, creative stuff. Like, it's not that hard.
Yeah. I mean, there was kind of like a little period there where it felt like every original movie wasn't really doing very well. But this was kind of refreshing that this actually was successful and was finding an audience, and is kind of hitting. because we need more of that. We need more of these movies to prove that they can be successful for the budget that we're made for. And so far,
Absolutely.
this seems to be doing just that. So
I forget if we talked about it on that preview episode, but like, you know, we probably haven't talked about Coogler much because he hasn't done like horror before really. But like going in, were you a fan of him? Like, where were you in terms of like his? Do you like his output, or you know, did his name get you excited for like a new movie?
let's see, where was it? Where was I with the Coogles before I saw this movie? Uh, no, I mean, I remember thinking Fruitvale Station was pretty solid, and the first Creed is very good. Arguably better than most, if not all, the Rocky movies, which is actually really saying something. Um, Black Panther is good to a point. I do think the third act gets into too much generic CG Marvel slop at the end, so
Sure.
all of the interesting stuff that it does kinda is diminished a little bit by then. Never saw the second Black Panther just because I'd lost interest in Marvel by that point. But
It's good enough for what it is, but obviously there's like so many challenges with the movie, because like when your main character dies, it's kind of hard. But not a great movie, but I do think like they, were able to pull off like some good stuff in it.
yeah, I think, yeah, no, I like Coogler. I think it's kind of this thing where he's clearly very talented, but because he'd been doing superhero blockbusters for a few years, right? It's only 2 movies, but that took up what, 5 years, 6 years of his career, between those 2 movies. So it kind of felt like, oh, it's been a while since he wowed me with Creed, but we'll find out in a second if this this movie kind of brought that spark back. Did this feel like it kind of reignited that a little bit?
And it's kind of interesting because like this is, or at least seems like it's his first like completely, like not based on anything else, like a kind of movie because Fruitvale Station is great, but it's like based on someone's life, and then which isn't the same as being based on like a comic book or whatever, but but then you have like legacy sequel and comic book movies and stuff, which you can still do cool things with it, but it's interesting to see like, okay, this is like something where it's just like completely like from your brain imagination or whatever.
That's what original means. Yes. Very good. I mean, I think you could chalk that up to like I wouldn't count Fruitvale Station. I mean, I know it is based on someone, but that still feels like a very personal project that was picked for.
Sure.
Yeah. Like I think it maybe speaks to what Hollywood is like right now, is that he had to build up enough credibility by doing the movies that Hollywood wants to be made before he has the just the cred to be given the rights, the clout to be able to just go and make something different and not that it's weird, but like relatively speaking, weird and original and different. I think that's kind of where that comes from, rather than anything in particular with Ryan Coogler's career. I think that's just movies now. It's the same with comic books. So like, so many writers are doing DC or Marvel, and then once their name's big enough, it's like, oh no, I'm just doing my own indie creations now forever. Same kind of idea. But no, I mean to just get into the premise of the movie, it's about 2 brothers played by Michael B. Jordan. He plays both roles, and they want to open up what do they call it? A juke joint, I think is the phrase they use. But they're basically, the movie's about them setting up and having their opening night, and there may be vampires, and that's all I'm going to say about the premise. But that's the basic gist of it. So, Tim, what did you think of Sinners?
Oh, I absolutely loved it. I mean, it's there's no, I don't know, like dancing around it. Like I'd heard good things. I had really high expectations going in. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to make it a point to see the movie as soon as possible, and do an episode about it because it seemed like everyone's talking about it, and I don't think it disappointed at all. I found it extremely compelling. I thought it looked great, and I don't know. if you when you talk, you'll get if you want to get into details about what you saw it on, like the theater that's close to me. It's very convenient because it's just like it's like 5 minutes away, but the screen isn't the best. I've seen like a lot of people saying like, oh no, like you gotta see that like the 70 millimeter IMAX screenings or whatever, and they've been making like a big deal. The ones they have like out here have been like sold out for like the last couple of weeks, which is cool that like a lot of people are trying to see it in that format and stuff. But needless to say though, I thought it looked great. The performances were great. I don't know if it's a little spoilery to say, but it takes a good bit for like the horror stuff to start. But I don't really have any complaints with it because I thought that stuff was just like as compelling, just seeing these characters, going about their day and getting everything set up. Like I would have enjoyed just a movie, of them kind of like getting this band together and creating this like space for themselves, and then there's just a lot of really memorable moments. There's like one moment in particular that I feel like a lot of people will be talking about for a while. I mean, there's so much to talk about. I mean, we'll get all into it. I mean, obviously there's like it's a movie that's about something too, which like there's probably multiple meanings or stuff you can attribute to it, but I think there's like a very clear like meaning or message behind it that we'll get into, that I think makes the movie very interesting. And then when the horror stuff does kick in, I thought it was done rather well. I like the look of the vampires. It's like very simple, like just having like these little like glints in their eyes. I feel like is so like much more creepy and menacing than so many like generic movies. You would have like these big CGI overdone faces that would just be so boring and uninteresting to look at. But like every time they would just have like these little subtle like movements or things like with the vampires. I thought it was really cool. And I mean this was a blast. I was really happy after I saw it, and happy we get to talk about it like rather quickly, as opposed to movies from like over a year ago that we're just now talking about.
I didn't know what to expect really going in. Like obviously I heard a lot of praise and I was like, okay, obviously I'm looking forward to it. I hope it's good. It's got a lot of good cast members on top of the director having a fair bit of credibility at this point. And it's very good. And like I saw the runtime and I got a little worried because it's like 2 hours and 15 minutes, and I'm like, God damn, why are horror movies even falling prey to this long runtime thing? But kind of like you alluded to, all that extra runtime is in the first half, because this movie does something that a lot of horror movies kind of speed through, which is it takes a good amount of time setting up the characters. And not just like the two brothers, like a lot of characters. Like there is a good 7 or 8 characters by the time we get to the point where everyone's at this sort of party, this opening night kind of thing, where there's so many characters that I know. I mean, I won't necessarily know by name because I'm terrible at remembering names, but I know them as characters. I know what their motivations are. I know how they all relate to each other, which means that when people are put in jeopardy and people start dying, all of a sudden it matters a lot more because they've all been set up so much, and they're pretty in-depth characters in some cases. They're there's some nuance to some of them, particularly the leads, the brothers. But like there's a lot going on there that really kind of sets everything up. The horror stuff is pretty great as well. For the most part, if I have one nitpick, if I have one thing where I say, oh, I feel just a little bit of a ding here, is that I do think that the final... when I say the final, I don't necessarily mean the ending, but like the final kind of like rush. Yeah, confrontation, we'll call it that. Mm-hmm. The final confrontation, it does feel a little rushed to me. It feels like it kind of happens very quickly and is over. And then there's some good stuff that happens after that, actually, which is why I didn't want to say the ending specifically. I wanted to kind of be clear. I was talking about a specific little segment. But other than that, I really have very little to complain about. And I think the thing that stuck out to me more than anything, even on top of the fact that the character work and building was so good, is just the sense of that it always kind of has this very clear, like, artistic voice that's always kind of present. It feels like it's got a specific lens that it wants to look through this story. This movie, as much as it's about vampires, as much as about racism and about the South and about communities and all these things, more than anything, it's actually about music, which is maybe not something that you'd be like assuming necessarily based on the premise of the movie, but it really is about music. And some of the most memorable sequences are how the characters talk about music or how they play music, and I think the one moment that Tim was alluding to earlier, which I will definitely not spoil here, that'll be saved for spoilers, but there was a very, very creative moment of filmmaking that kind of ties to the music that's kind of right bang in the middle of the movie that I think most people are going to remember very, very fondly.
Like, I have a few, like, very small, like, quibbles as well, but again, it's like so, such a small pebble in like a giant ocean, it really doesn't matter. I do have a question about the ending, but that I was a little confused about. I don't know if I just missed something.
Oh yeah, I should probably mention this as well. There's a post-credit scene that I didn't see because I didn't know there was a post-credit scene.
So there's like a scene that's like after a few credits, and then there's, I think, a scene at the very end. I didn't see the one at the very end, but from what I hear, it's kind of like a, not really, not like vital to the story or whatever. Did you see the one that
I read what I missed, and it sounded like a big scene. So I think I didn't see the one in the middle seat either. I saw very little at the end. I'll just say that.
We can go into that because it's it is kind of weird because I do think that was an important scene. I don't know why it wasn't just tacked on to the end, but
I got a little annoyed when I read what was in what I missed, because I was like, wait a minute, this seems like a pretty big important thematic scene. I don't know, like I'm not trained to assume there's going to be mid-credit and post-credit scenes in every goddamn movie. Thanks, Marvel, I guess.
For me, I really had to pee, so I was like pretty close to getting up and going, and then I was like, let me just wait just a few, and then once it started, I was like, oh, okay. Well, I'm glad I did that. But then as soon as that was over, I'm like, I'm out of here.
Yeah, I even feel like I got up that quick, but like I didn't even hear it, like, because if it was that quick, I should have heard like dialogue before I get out the door, and I'd have been like, oh, what, there's a scene, and I should have turned around. But I didn't. I was gone. Music was still playing, but yeah, fair enough, whatever. It's something I can see properly when it comes to home release.
Oh yeah, and this is one for sure that like I'll be watching again. I know, like, I've had friends that already have like seen it a few times, and I mean, if I didn't have kids and like a busy schedule and stuff, I'd probably I wouldn't mind going out to the theater and seeing it again. Again, especially like if I can catch one of those IMAX showings or something.
Yeah. I don't have any IMAXs close to me. It would be quite a trip. Well, not a trip, but it would be a bit more of a to-do to go see an IMAX showing. And be a bit more of a hassle. But what's interesting about this movie, though, is that it's shot in two different aspect ratios. I don't know if it's the whole movie that's shot in two ratios, if only certain scenes are shot in the IMAX format, which is basically 4:3. But what's unique about this is that even the regular movie ratio, because they shot in 70mm, is the ultra-wide 2.76 to 1. Now, I realise that I'm talking numbers now, people are going to zone out, but it's wider than normal. It's wider than most of the other movies you see. I.e., when you watch on a widescreen TV, the black bars at the top and bottom are going to be thicker than normal. So the fact that then in the IMAX version, it's shot like so tall that it opens up to almost 4:3 from that ratio is kind of nuts. There was actually a video that Ryan Coogler put out like a couple of weeks ago, just as the movie was coming out, where he talked about the choice of doing this, and you see some comparisons of the two different versions, and it's kind of wild that he shot for those two different versions. So the version I saw was definitely the wide version. Like it had that kind of shape to it. So I assume that's what you saw too.
I mean, obviously, I'm not as well versed as you, so I probably wouldn't have noticed. But I'm sure that's what I saw.
Tim. I'm pretty sure you would notice if it was 4:3.
Okay, if you say so.
No, Tim, you would. It would be a square.
Okay, yeah.
This is baloney. There is no way you would not notice if you went to the theater and a modern movie was that shape. I mean, the last movie you probably shot that shape was The Lighthouse.
Right. Okay.
Still a dead expression. Okay, fine. Whatever.
What do you want from me?
I don't know. You have this tone of like, I would never notice this. This is absurd. It's like, oh, bloody hell. Anyway, the movie looks good though. Is the more important point to make? It's it looks like a movie. Plays with shadows, all the usual things.
Yeah, and then, I mean, we'll probably get into spoilers soon, but I mean, just like a few things. I mean, obviously talking about Michael B. Jordan a lot, but the other, I would say, kind of main character, like their cousin, who's like the guitar player, preacher's son.
Or Sammy, if you prefer his given name.
Yeah. Which I think, I don't know if this is his first movie, because I think he got like an introducing credit or something. I think that was him. But I thought he was terrific. And like you said, music is such an important thing in this movie. And I think he really sells like the music component. Like I love whenever he would, break out the guitar and everything. Like you can see, I mean, first of all, he played, and sang extremely well, but I love, the, like the reactions that other people have that are just like, oh damn, like this kid's good. And I just love that aspect of like I love movies about like people that are just like, hey, let's like do our like own thing. Like let's, like band together and kind of get like this kind of creative, thing going. Like, usually it'll be like a movie about people making a movie or something like that. But in this case, it's like, people like getting together to, make their own, like, I mean, essentially like that time period's version of like a nightclub or whatever. But, a lot of it is like, focusing on the music and stuff. So it's really cool just seeing them like incorporate like all the different people they know, and, seeing everyone can kind of come together for it. And then I like that, how that kind of plays into like the desires of the vampires and, what's saying with that, which, we'll get into in spoilers and everything. But yeah, I mean, all together, just really good time.
Yeah, this is the actor's one credit as an actor. What's his name? Miles Caton is the actor's name, who plays Sammy. So this is his first time. He does have a couple of credits as like music related things because he is a musician, I believe. So
makes sense. Yeah.
It's there's a hell of a cast here. I mean, Hailee Steinfeld's in here.
I was surprised. I didn't realize that she was in it.
Yeah. No, I knew she was there. I'd seen her doing some marketing for it. Jack O'Connell's in here. He plays... I don't think it's a spoiler to say he plays a vampire, because even in the trailer it's clear he's the bad guy.
Okay.
So you've got him. You've got Wunmi Mosaku, if I'm saying her name right, I apologize if I'm not, is Annie, who I saw a few years ago for the first time on Lovecraft Country, and she's been in a few other things since then. What's notable about her, which you might not realize, is that she's English, and she has a very thick English accent in real life.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, because one of the marketing things I saw was a video for one of the usual websites who do these kind of things, and she was teaching Hailee Steinfeld like British slang, and she has a thick like London accent. It's actually kind of funny, because everything I've seen her in, she's been playing an American and like it's you would never know that she's actually English from the performances. So you got that. Delroy Lindo.
English.
Secret English, yes. Delroy Lindo is in here as well.
I think he was one of my favorite characters. I really liked him.
Yeah, he plays like an older musician in here, kind of the old timer. Which, to be fair, yeah, I mean, I kind of looked to him as the old timer when he was in movies 20 years ago. So the fact that he's still around doing movies, yeah, sure enough. And then yeah, there's a few other smaller roles as well where people that I didn't know I didn't recognize their names or anything, or like the actors, but it's a relatively robust cast. So it definitely feels like it's a higher, like, I don't want to say it's not prestige horror, because prestige horror is like a phrase we use to mean like I don't know,
fartsy kind of stuff.
And I guess this is kind of like verging on that in some ways, because it does have like more meanings and like it's doing some more stuff, but at the same time it's also just a vampire siege movie. Like that's also what it is. It would not be hard to compare this to a From Dusk Till Dawn or
that's an easy comparison.
Or even if you go outside of vampires, you could say like a Night of the Living Dead almost. Like it's just that kind of style of movie.
Yeah, but it's like anything with whenever a horror movie is like too good, people like automatically try to find like some way to like label it as like not just a horror movie. So I was like, oh no, yeah, this is like elevated prestige horror or something, like, which I wouldn't put it into this category either. But like,
I wasn't trying. The point I was trying to make with that wasn't anything to do with like even the quality of the movie. It was more just that the cast is more like A-list than a horror movie normally would have. Normally in a horror movie we have a bunch of no names and maybe one like known TV actor or something like that. Yeah. Or people who are usually in horror movies. But this is Michael B. Jordan, Hailee Steinfeld, Delroy Lindo. Like, this is a bunch of people who feel like they put together like an A-tier cast for this, for a vampire movie, and that just feels different and sticks out a little bit. So when I say prestige, I only just kind of mean in the sense that, like, oh no, we're going to just hire a bunch of people with talent in this, which probably is partly why the characters are more memorable than a lot of regular horror movies, to be honest.
Absolutely, yeah, and like even the people that are like, names that I didn't recognize, like you can tell that, they're not schlubbing it and just like hiring whoever. Like, they're putting lots of thoughts into these roles and hiring like just really good actors. Like, and like I didn't think there was anyone that really like phoned it in or whatever. Yeah,
I mean, I think we should probably get into spoilers now, so we can talk about things a bit more in depth. So spoilers for Sinners, you have been warned. We'll get into it. So I mean, the big sequence, just to kind of start with something in the middle and work from there. The big sequence that everyone is going to remember from this, and there is kind of like a special moment when you realize what they're doing, is when the party actually gets going, and we have Sammy, who we find out early on he's a guitarist and he loves to play the blues, and he's convinced his cousins to let him play. Stack of the two brothers has been very impressed with hearing him. So, because their names are Smoke and Stack, they're the Smokestack brothers, and I'll be honest, until I learned their names, because I didn't realize that was just their two first names or their two nicknames put together. I was calling them Red and Blue because they were easily identifiable, because one wore a red hat and one wore a blue hat, which is very smart filmmaking from Coogler, because otherwise it might get confusing as to who is who. So you have to keep your Michael B. Jordan separate. Anyway, the big sequence in the middle, once the music starts playing and they get kind of lost in it, is we get this oneer where it goes around the party, but it starts to reveal characters who are not supposed to be there. Basically, the opening narration of the movie, because normally when you go to see a horror movie and you tell me in advance, oh, there's going to be a character who narrates an opening, and sort of gives a bit of lore. You're like, okay, fine. She's like, they're going to talk about vampires. They're going to say, oh, creatures of the night, come back from the dead, something spooky, right? That's what you think they're going to say. This movie opens with Annie doing the narration, and she explains that music is this like almost supernatural gift that can transcend time and space, and it kind of unites us all from the past, all from the future, And she gives this little speech, and it's like, okay, we're going to be talking about music, cool, whatever. Didn't think much of it in the moment, but once you get to that middle part of the movie where they get lost in the song, and you start seeing like an 80s guitar player like show up,
Yeah.
and then the camera spins round, and there's like an old tribal musician playing, and then it spins round again, and there's like a modern high schooler in a Letterman jacket like bopping their head, and it's doing this thing going around the party and showing all these people from the past and the future. And it almost, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a lot in the movie that's specific to the time period, so it's kind of always going to be set in 1932. But one of the things you get to do, because you've set it in 1932, is that you can put in a lot of future things, and we all recognize them and go, oh, hey, that's a modern musician. I think at one point there's a DJ in the scene that you can see bopping their head and like doing stuff on the decks and whatever. And the camera sort of spins all around and goes around the party, and it's this big sequence. It feels super like thought out and artistic, and it's like, whoa, this is actually really impressive, and I can see people really loving this. And not only is it a really impressive scene, and it feels very kind of spiritual and symbolic, and kind of all about the power of music and how it's kind of this unifying thing throughout history that brings everyone together and gives them like a release away from their troubles and like away from everything that's bothering them. It's also what attracts the monsters. And the fact that this shot ends with going outside, and we get this crazy visual where the building's not there anymore, and it's just like there's just fire around the people who are all dancing, and then you just see like the vampire like staring at the party with like, you know, a glimmer in his eye. You're like, oh no, this also brought the monsters to them. I think if nothing else from this movie, that like 3-4 minute sequence is going to go down as like, oh, like that's the set piece, that's the standout thing that everyone's going to point to and say, this is filmmaking, baby.
No, it's so impressive, and it's, you know, it's interesting that like, yeah, one of the most impressive like bits of the movie isn't even like, you know, something to do with the horror or whatever, and yeah, I mean I don't really have much to add. Like, I mean, you explained it very well, and it's just, you know, it's beautiful, it's engaging, and like I don't even consider myself like a huge like, you know, music fan. Like, obviously I like music, like, you know, I feel like that, you know, it's not like there's that many people that just like don't like music or whatever, but you know, it's not like I'm, you know, always on the lookout for new music and like, you know, listening to it like, you know, hours every day or whatever. But still, like, you know, it was getting me in that moment being like, well, heck yeah, like, yeah, this is like a beautiful thing, and it's like really like, you know, touching me, like seeing like you know, all of these decades come together, and like all these people like just expressing their passion, and everyone just like enjoying it and just losing themselves, you know, in the moment. It's it's amazing. And then like you said, like, you know, any good horror movie, you know, you have this beautiful moment that then you just tack on this little bit of horror at the end where it's like, oh yeah, I forgot that, you know, this is a horror movie.
I mean,
so it works so well.
Yeah, no pun intended, but like the little like ending moment of the vampires watching the building and then starting to walk towards it feels extra sinister. Because it's typical storytelling, right? You do it in TV writing all the time, you do it in horror movies, and sometimes you get quite cynical about it where you're like, oh, these characters are too happy, someone's about to die. Like that's like a feeling you get like in writing. You give the audience the characters that they're happy so that it's going to feel terrible when one gets cut down. But I don't know if most movies reach the level that this one does, in the sense that it spends the entire first half, maybe more than the first half of the movie, honestly. Like I'd have to like look at, I can't bring up the timeline when I'm in the movie theaters to check these things, which I might do at home, because it's at least like 45 minutes before you even get a hint of a vampire in this movie, right? At least. But like,
and I really do like that like intro scene with the vampire.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about that. Yeah, we'll talk about that in depth. But like, this movie spends so long building up to this this opening night, and obviously from one side of it, it's a plot thing. It's the two brothers, what their reputation is, setting up their character and all that stuff, and that's all pretty good. And it paints them as fairly complex characters who, okay, they're gangsters, they're kind of tough, but there's kind of like a heart of gold quality to them as well in there. But then it also spends a lot of time building the town and the townsfolk and the various people they go to ask to come and help, whether it's to come and play music, to come and make food for everyone, to be the bouncer, whatever it is. Like, all that time is spent. In fact, one of the first filmmaking things I really noticed was another oneer in the movie before it gets to the really fancy one. There's a really good one where they go into like the main street of the town, and it's Smoke, that one of the two Jordans, and he goes to see like this Asian couple who end up being fairly prominent side characters, and he goes to see the husband and says, "Hey, can your wife make me a sign?" And we get this shot where the husband says to the daughter who's working behind the counter, "Hey, go get your mum. We need to see her." And we do this oneer where we follow the daughter go across the street into this other store, which maybe they also own. I'm unclear of the details of the ownership of all these different places. Doesn't really matter though, because you get this whole sense of like just energy in the town and how many people are there. And she walks all the way across, and then when it gets to the mom and she says, "Hey, Dad wants to see you," and she takes over for her mum at the other store, the shot continues and it follows the mum back across the street, back into the original store. And it just has this sense of fluidity. It feels alive. It feels like this town's full of people. And it really sells the idea of just like how many people are here and how kind of like full of life the place is, which also kind of adds to the horror later that it's kind of like all doomed to all be killed because vampires are spreading very quickly when things get going. So I think that stuff is really good. It just does a really good job of making it feel like there's a lively town here. The fact that like people just got shot in the street and people don't seem that phased kind of shows you just how like, you know, I think that would be more shocking today. People would be really traumatized if there was gunshots in the street. They wouldn't be acting normal 5 minutes later. But here, you know, it's 1932, I guess. It's the South, so they're a bit more accustomed to such a thing.
And I'm guessing maybe, like, I don't know if like guns were like a little weaker then, because yeah, you kind of just shoot them and they're, you know, obviously they're in pain, but they're not like, you know, dead or anything. I forget what the guy said, but I thought it was funny. Like, where it just been like, you shot me in the ass or something. But yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a good character bit. Like the whole thing where he catches these two guys stealing from his truck, and like when they recognize it's him, because they have a reputation here, but they've been gone for 7 years. That's part of their characters. They've been in Chicago for the past while. Like he shoots the younger guy in the ass, or maybe he shoots him in the leg, and he shoots the other guy in the ass. And he's like, "You shot me in the ass." And he's like, "Yeah, well, I can't have people hearing that you almost robbed us without any, any injuries to show for it." But then he goes inside and he gives money to the Asian guy and says, "Hey, make sure they get patched up." So it's kind of like, we have to maintain the reputation, but he cares about the people in his community. That's kind of, that's what I was getting at with the Heart of Gold kind of comments. It gives you all these little things to kind of still like them, even if they are doing the tough gangster kind of act a lot of the time. There's layers to them, right? There's a lot of nuance to the characters that works really well. But all of this, what this all does is that it means that by the time you get to them all having music together and playing, and we've learned so much about the town and the people in it, something as simple, and this is like a big plot point once the night actually starts, which they set up really well in an earlier scene with Smoke and his ex or current wife. I don't know. Either way, like him and Annie were a thing, and they had a child that seemingly either died at birth or maybe a little after. Again, didn't have to go into it in too much detail. It didn't really matter. They lost a child, like a baby. Yeah. You know, it's quite clear. So they do a whole thing where they set up this idea that the local plantation, which employs most of the town, actually doesn't pay them in real money. They pay them in like a local money that only works in the town. And this is not something I've heard of before, but it sadly made instant sense to me because I'm like, yeah, it's kind of hard to run away if your money doesn't work outside the town you're in.
Mhm.
So I'm like, that's evil and like absolutely devious. And that's like a plot point later on because they're using this money to pay for drinks and stuff at their bar. And Smoke's not happy about it. No, like we need real money. We need American money that actually works everywhere. And the other's like, no, you have to be sympathetic. They've been working hard all week. This is a release for them. We've got to accept their I don't even know what you call it. Like, again, I'm not really familiar with the concept, but they explain it really well in the movie. Like you understand that there's a separate money that's only really good locally. And yeah, I think that's kind of interesting because I think that gets into some of the themes that the movie's playing with. Is that they're screwed either way. Like a big part of the movie is that if the vampires didn't get them, then the clan was coming for them next anyway. And this idea that they wanted to be successful and enterprising and have their own place and be profitable, but the powers that be were never ever going to let that happen. So that kind of gets into that. This money is all about control. It's all about, oh wait, we spend all this real money that we have up front, and now we're only making this we'll call it fake money because that's basically what it is.
Yeah, no, I mean it gives you like a lot of character motivations, and again, it's like so much of them is, or so much of it is like, hey, we want a place for ourselves where like our community can come and let loose, but at the same time, it's like we also want to be these like enterprising businessmen. Like we don't want to have to be beholden to like other people, or same as these townsfolk, like only have this money that we can only do so much with or whatever. So there's a lot of interesting stuff going on there.
Yeah, the system's rigged is basically what it's getting at. Yeah, because the opening scenes, I mean, not counting like the little open with Sammy that's like set after the end of the story, where he's like riding into church with his broken guitar. But like the first scene with the brothers where they wait for this guy to show up to like buy this, I think they say it's like an old sawmill is what they're buying for the club.
Oh no, I thought it was a, what do you call it, like a butcher, like a kind of like a meat butchering plant. Because I thought they mentioned something before, like about like how that's like the killing floor or whatever. But maybe I'm misremembering that.
No, I think that was later when they were talking about the clan coming to kill people rather than. I mean, I could be misremembering. It doesn't really matter what it was, but it was a building of some kind that was used for something else.
Mm-hmm.
But they're buying it from this guy at the start, and there's just a lot of things in here in the writing and the directing that's kind of setting up some of the themes. Like, there's a bit of tension, of course, because this guy, calls them boys and other things, and they don't let him away with it. And he acts all nice and tries to say, "Oh, I meant nothing by it. That's just how we talk down here." But then he spits on the floor, and it's kind of like, "Well, you're buying this place, but I clearly don't respect you because I'm just ready to spit on the floor." And then obviously there's the moment where they say, "Hey, you're not a member of the clan, are you?" And he's like, "Oh, don't be silly. That doesn't exist anymore." And of course, as soon as he said that, I'm like, "You're definitely a member." In fact, he turns out to be the leader of the local branch. I don't know if that's how they're structured. I don't know if they have like branches. Like, do they all report into like a head of clan? Is it like got a proper business like structure? I do not know, but he's the head of the town's group. Shall we say?
Obviously, I'm not an expert, but I mean, I think there are like levels, because I think you hear about like this person was like the Grand Wizard or whatever of like.
They have really dorky names.
It's extremely dorky.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there, but go on.
But yeah, and then because I think that was like part of what that movie. Was it The Black Klansman was about? Because I think it was like the person was getting close to David Duke, who I think was like the head. But it's funny to think that like this stupid organization like does have like a hierarchy to it. Although who knows how organized it was back then. But I thought this was like a good like scene in the beginning, and then I liked how for the most part like like forgotten about it, like, you know, for most of the movie until it kind of comes back around at the end, and I was like, oh yeah, I completely forgot about that. And it was like, it is very interesting to like have this like whole extra little like piece to the movie, like after like all the horror stuff stopped. Yeah, I don't know, I just thought that was interesting. But I mean, it's very satisfying to, you know, see these people get mowed down.
Oh yeah. But I mean, even before that though, there's like allusions to it. Like when the vampires show up, one of the arguments the vampires make to want to get inside is that they like, you know, hey, we can make you immortal, and then the clan won't be a problem anymore. Like, is this idea of like the because there's even a line at the start actually where the cousins say, "Oh, we came back because of the devil we know." Like, you know, the Chicago was different and it was tough, but back here we know what the bad things are. We can deal with them. There's like a certain level of like, I don't know, like just trying to like manage that, and then them still being kind of out of their depth, because everything's so stacked against them. But that's definitely an undertone to the movie, though, is the idea of comparing the vampires to just like anyone who wants to bleed them dry, whether it be literal or figurative, right? That's very much a big part of it.
What I thought was really interesting is, I mean, you know, obviously, you know, like the main vampire and the two kind of like cronies that, you know, that he turns, like, you know, they're all white. So it would be very easy to make this like a, oh, like, you know, here's the evil white vampires who are, you know, attacking like, you know, the black heroes and stuff, which, I mean, obviously, you know, that's what's happening. But what's interesting about it is it's not like, you know, they're not like racist like the clans people or whatever, or like, you know, the main vampire is, but instead he's this kind of insidious, like, he, like, it's more like he's attracted to their like culture, so as opposed to like having like someone who'd be like,
to use a word here that I think you're kind of alluding to, it's more of a assimilation, right? It's this idea of we're going to absorb your culture, and it's going to be, because that's even part of like the vampire lore in this movie even specifically goes out of its way to say, once you're made a vampire, we all kind of share each other's memories. Like, it's kind of like almost, I won't quite call it a hive mind, but there's kind of like a memory kind of network to it. As soon as like one of them's bitten, it's like, hey, we know all of their past, we know who they care about, we know all the secrets they had, and that also ties into this idea of being drawn to the music and like the culture.
Yeah.
Of like there's something that, so it's kind of like there's like a colonialism aspect to this as well, of like coming in and just taking from the local culture. In fact, the movie even goes out of its way to point out actually let's talk about this scene now. The first scene with the vampires is a scene where we just sort of cut suddenly to this vampire. The sun is still going down and he's all kind of burned in the back, but he's running from someone, and he goes to a door and it's this couple that answer, and we see like a clan outfit in the background to sort of tell us who these people are. But he's basically, hey, please let me in, there's these people chasing me, they're going to hurt me, please, I'll give you whatever I've got in my pockets. And he pulls out this gold, and later on he tries to use this gold to get into the club as well. But this is gold that he has from the Native Americans, and it's Native Americans who are chasing them, who clearly know he's a vampire, because when they see the sun go down, because they try and convince the couple to let them in, to you know, hey, have you seen this man running away? He's dangerous, blah, 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 blah. But when they see the sun go down, they immediately like, hey, we have to go to safety, right? We cannot hunt him after dark. It's too dangerous. And they leave. And then later on, they try and use this gold from the Native Americans to try and get into the club. Like, the movies try to keep in mind, as much as we're talking about this black community being controlled and exploited by the white people around them, and then like the vampires coming in, you also have this idea of like, yeah, but like, who owned this land before the colonialism like came into play? Who was here first? Yep. And I think that's why those scenes with the Native Americans like being the ones who are actually hunting the vampire to begin with is there. It's just this idea that there's always someone taking from someone else. There's always kind of that element at play. So I think that was a really interesting little layer to add on to this, on top of everything else, because the vampire part especially feels like it's really tapping into that, is this idea of coming in and saying, no, we're going to take what's yours, we're going to make it all part of one big thing of us. And like, we're going to say it's for the better, we're going to say it's good and that this is going to make your life better, but as they point out in the movie, like, yeah, you'll live forever, but your soul's trapped in the body of a demon for like the rest of existence. You're not free, you're not in the afterlife, if there's such a thing exists. You're trapped in here with us forever, which is that more insidious than just being killed by a racist person? Arguably, I mean, I don't know, like take your pick, I guess. But I don't know, it's interesting.
No, yeah, I mean, I think that's like a really interesting angle to take with it. Like, yeah, because it would have been very easy just to be like, oh yeah, here's like the evil bigots and they're coming to get you or whatever. But yeah, it's like there's this kind of and it's obviously like a very meta layer where it's like, oh yeah, as soon as like someone of color or something like makes something creative, like in swoops, like the white business executives or whatever to try to be like, okay, like how can we make this our own and like profitize it and like kind of do like all the shady business stuff that they do. So yeah, there's just like a really interesting angle to it. And then yeah, like you're saying, how that fits in, like how they made that fit into like with the lore of the vampire, I thought was a really like cool, unique idea. I don't know if they've done that with vampire stuff before, but like it seemed pretty like new and unique to me. So like I just like that little bit. And then yeah, that going back to that scene you were talking about, like when we first see the vampire, everything in that like was so well done. Like I love like the look of it, and just like seeing the vampire like land in frame with like the sun burning his back, and then just like the little nods of like, oh yeah, you're seeing like the clan's outfit. And then I feel like once the vampire kind of like realizes that, it's like, okay, I can easily like dupe these people over, because who are they gonna listen to, me or the Native Americans chasing me, like obviously, which there's an interesting aspect you can probably put over there too, where you have like these people that are probably going against their own self-interest, because they'd rather listen to evil white person that doesn't care about them, as opposed to have to be bothered to like interact or be with like live around people of color or that are different than them or whatever. But also it's just like there's so much like lore that's building up, and it feels like I don't want to instantly be like, oh man, like I want to see like a sequel or a prequel or whatever. But like I don't know, just thinking of like
no sequel, leave it be.
I'm not. I know. I'm just saying though. Like I don't. I was like instantly fascinated by. I was like, oh, like I kind of want to know like, what was going on, like, like what inspired this chase, like between the Native Americans and this vampire and stuff. Like it feels like there's so much like story and stuff there that would be interesting to explore. I'm not saying they should, but I'm like, it's just like a good like bit of world building where I'm like, oh, I kind of want to know like what's happening there. And then even with before like the stuff with the the twins in Chicago and like when they're mentioning that they're working for like Al Capone, it's like, oh shit, like that sounds interesting. Like I like that they're like setting stuff up that it's like, oh, like I don't know, it just makes like the world feel bigger, like that there's like so much story to tell. Again, not saying that you instantly need to like spin off a million different things, but
oh no, I mean I will come down harsh and say they shouldn't spin off a single goddamn thing. The reason why all of this is interesting, all of this backstory, is because it's good backstory. The second you try and expand it into full things, it'll lose all of its mystique, it'll lose all of its luster. It's interesting because we just see the end of this chase with the Native Americans. The twins and their history in Chicago is interesting because they just allude to the idea that they were playing the Irish mobsters against the Italian mobsters, and that they stole from both, and that's why they have a bunch of Italian wine in their truck, but also a bunch of Irish beer, is because of that. Like, these little things make it so interesting because it is just these little teases and hints of what came before and implies a much larger backstory and world. And it should be left as just that. Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, I think just to finish off that first scene with the vampire, though, when the Native Americans do leave and the wife goes back inside, because she's still normal at this point, and she goes back inside and she finds just like her husband in a pool of blood, and Jack O'Connell's sitting there with just his face covered in blood, and he's just very softly saying, "Hey, it's okay, everything's fine." And then the husband gets up and he's now got vampire teeth and the glowing red eyes, which is kind of the signature look to them in this movie. That's your big vampire introduction scene, and then we go a while again without them, because it's like, okay, so that happens before the night of like fun starts, and then we get a lot of that up to that big sequence we talked about, and then it says, okay, now they're outside, they're watching, and now it's the build to how things are going to kick off with them and the other characters and everything else. Just before we get into all that, though, I think it's worth going back and talking about a few of the other characters and how they're introduced. But it's specifically Delroy Lindo's character, because I think there's a lot to him specifically. Yeah, so he's introduced as kind of this old drunk who plays music, and they go and recruit him, and like a few of the scenes, there's a little bit of convincing that takes place. It tends to be quite funny convincing. It tends to sort of reveal the characters know each other very well. And whatnot. This is also the scene where Hailee Steinfeld's character is introduced as Stack's ex-girlfriend, who's here to find him because she's pissed at him for not returning to her. But this character is this old character whose name is Slim, which I don't remember. But Slim, like, he's kind of important in the sense that, one, he's kind of the old wiser guy, even though he's a bit of a drunk, but he has this like story, because when they're driving down the road to go to the place, they pass by a bunch of people in like a chain gang, like prisoners, and he yells something at them or whatever, and like they all kind of cheer, and then the guards like fire off a shot, and everyone kind of wakes up a little bit. But he basically, like, I think it's Sammy asks him, "Hey, did you know any of them?" And he's like, "Oh, I knew all of them." And he ends up telling a story of this person that he played music with who got lynched, basically just because someone decided to accuse him of something because he had too much money on him. And it's a really somber, like, sobering story. But what's interesting about it is, one, it's a really good bit of acting from Lindo, but it kind of, like, at the end of it, when he kind of, like, wails, he kind of starts singing, like, from that, and it's like a really good example of like showing that the music is used to try and like deal with everything that these people are putting up with in their lives. The music in general is used for that. It's a release of like, hey, life is shitty, things are bad, sometimes very, very bad, very dark, and the music's a way of trying to escape that, which just kind of further emphasizes just how important it is to everyone that they have this sense of release once they actually get to the bigger, musical performances and stuff that are inside the club.
Yeah, I'm not like a very knowledgeable about the blues or whatever, but I mean, that kind of seems like that's like, what the point of it is. Like, yeah, you take like all your pain and frustration and you pour it into the music, and
I mean, I think like the all music's kind of that, but yeah, the blues specifically is called the blues because you're feeling blue, I believe, is the reason.
Yeah. And like, I think he even has like a line to like Sammy or something where he says, like, because he's so young, he's like, "Oh, like, what do you know about the blues or whatever?" But then I think like even he's kind of won over by like when he plays his music.
Yeah, he's definitely older, he's definitely chiseled, he's lost a lot of hope, but still finds some peace in the music itself, which I
always love those kind of characters, like the like old timer guy that's like seen it all, and he's kind of like a little sarcastic, and but then like he does have like these moments of like kind of like heartbreak and clarity and stuff, so like in some ways it kind of feels like he has a little bit of comic relief at times, but then he has like those very serious moments, and then he has like a pretty cool like part in like the kind of the final battle. So I like this character a lot.
Yeah, and they all have something. You've got like Smoke rekindles with his wife, right? Or Annie. They talk about the why he's been gone, because being here's been too painful. But the big thing about her is we find out she's quite spiritual, and she sells like I don't know what you call it, but like you know, it feels demeaning to say magic beans, but she sells like
kind of like new agey medicine or something.
Yeah, she sells like I guess the modern equivalent
remedies,
would be like healing crystals and things like that.
Yeah,
but she's pretty spiritual, and she believes in the supernatural. She believes in ghosts and the afterlife. And there's a really good scene actually where just before they rekindle and have sex, he kind of says, "Hey, you know, I was in the war, meaning World War One, and I have been all over the world. I've seen people kill." I have never seen any evidence that there's anything supernatural or anything like that exists. And of course, for us, the context of the movie is we know we're watching a vampire movie, so he's about to have a rude awakening when this stuff comes up. But it does set up why she's like ready to like sort of start like putting the pieces together when she starts seeing all the evidence of what's going on. Which is interesting because keep in mind, this is set in 1932. Like, this is a year after Dracula came out. Just to put that in perspective. The movie, that is, not the book. The book was obviously a good few decades at this point.
And that's kind of interesting because like once like all this stuff starts going down, she doesn't even think it's like vampires at first. Like
not first,
like haints and stuff.
I was shocked that she even said the word vampire eventually, because I thought, oh, this is... It's not even just so much that it's too early that everyone would know what that word means, because I think some people would, or a lot of people would even, but it was more just I thought, oh, they're not going to actually use the common word that we all use in present day. Like, she's going to call it something a bit more old school or specific or something. But no, once she sees enough evidence and she starts using garlic, she's like, oh no, these are vampires. We got vampires to deal with here. We need sunlight, we need wooden stakes, we need, you know, all the usual stuff. Like, all the normal rules apply. So she's got that stuff going on. We also just have like obviously the Asian couple have their daughter, so which, you know, isn't maybe a lot up front, but that becomes a big deal later when like she's specifically threatened. Just you know, Sammy's got a lot going on because Sammy wants to play music and he's really excited about doing that, but he's also attracted to this married woman and all that, and he gets a bunch of sex advice from Stack, and that kind of pays off because he ends up with her because she's so impressed with his music that they end up having a bit of a fling in like the storage room. And it's a very kind of like lighthearted, kind of funny sort of thing where, you know, they hear it through the door and they kind of like, you know, joke about, oh, little cousin's, you know, look at him go, he's all grown up now, kind of thing. Like, it's all very likable. It's all very kind of like, they all have something that you can think about what their character was doing or wanting or feeling some remorse over, whatever it might be, so that when all the chaos starts, it feels like these are all characters we really know that are now in danger. And we also see how they all relate, because as much as like some of them are introduced with one particular brother or one particular character, like for example, Sammy spends a lot of the first half of the movie with Stack, and Smoke's the one who goes to see Annie. But when they're all at the club, there's a moment where like Annie's sort of cheering Sammy on, and it feels like, oh, they know each other. Like, they all know each other here. This is obviously a small community, relatively speaking, where everyone is aware of everyone else. And it was all of a sudden you kind of realize, oh, like, these aren't all just separate connections that are like that we're seeing throughout the movie. Like, no one here has to be introduced to anyone else. Like, they're all living together in this town. So I like those little things as well, which again made it feel kind of like a communal thing, this entire like club that they were doing.
Yeah, and I think it just, you know, speaks to, you know, Ryan Coogler's strengths, where he's just really able to, like, you know, sell these characters to you in a way where, yeah, they all feel connected and they all feel like real. And then, yeah, it just makes everything like really gel together when it all kind of comes together, you know, at this, you know, one, you know, kind of crazy night. A couple of things to mention to like might want to bring up. Sammy, he has like this guitar that I forget who they. I feel like they told him that it was like someone's like famous guitar, so I forget who. But it kind of has like this. I'm guessing, was it supposed to be like silver, kind of like
Well, yeah.
circle part to it.
So I noticed early on it had a really kind of distinct kind of like almost plate on the guitar. Obviously what you're getting at is that later on it's like shoved into a vampire's face and it burns. But they never tell us before that it's silver though. We just see this metal plate on the guitar and don't think about it. But obviously later on when we see it has an effect on the vampires, it's like, oh, it's silver. That's a nice little payoff. So yeah, so just to kind of flip that around a little bit, because that's kind of, I think, why that was a good little reveal, is because we didn't know it was silver, and then it was used in the moment, and you're like, oh shit, of course it's silver. That's why it's that weird guitar that looks different to every other guitar I've ever seen, because the silver part's going to be important.
And it's great that, like, I don't know, the guitar is kind of like his strength, but it's like also like a literal physical weapon, like, yeah. That he can use, and then the other thing I was going to bring up too, another character I like, which I forget his name. Was it like Cornfed or something that was the
Cornbread?
bouncer?
I believe was the name.
Yeah, that they go and pick him up. Like, I guess he's working on the plantation, and that was like another fun little scene when they like go and pick him up because he like doesn't want to go with them at first, and then they kind of like start like like making like jokes about his wife, and then it's like he's gonna like kick their ass because he's like a huge guy, but then they kind of break out like how much money that they're gonna offer him.
It's notably the wife who gets convinced. She hears about this money that's going to get made, and she's like, wait, how much money are you going to pay him? And lo and behold, cut to them all sitting in the car on the way to the club. One of the little details that I really liked actually is that we kind of cut like when they're just about ready to be open. We don't see a lot of them setting up at the place, but you do get like a montage of it right near the end after almost everyone is dead. You get this montage of everyone coming together to prepare the club and like getting the food ready, setting the stage up, all the people arriving. But you get that after they're all dead. So it's kind of like this really bittersweet of like, oh, look at how like all together they are, how they all worked for something as a group, as a community. They just made it hit really hard. I think that's where the directing here really, or the writing even, was really on point here. To get into like when the vampires actually kind of get involved, right? Because that's kind of what we've been avoiding up until this point.
Oh yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring up the bouncer guy, because like it so much of a big part of like, or one of the pieces of vampire lore that they use a lot here. It's like the idea of needing to be invited in, and I just thought like all these scenes were really fun, like when they're trying to get in. And
the big thing for me about that is, okay, so they come up to the door and they need to be invited in, and obviously there's a weird bit of tension here because, hey, there's 3 white people that we don't know want to come in. They might be dangerous, they might not be, they might attract trouble. We don't really know for sure. And they claim to play music. They're being very nice about it, right? You know, Jack O'Connell's putting on the charm, and he's kind of got this American-Irish kind of thing going, because they kind of play some like Irish folk music when they're playing on their own outside. But it's like, okay, that's interesting enough. For me, what I really liked about the whole like they need an invitation to come in thing is I like how it's used afterwards. So basically, Hailee Steinfeld at this point is like, hey, maybe we should go let them in, just purely because they might have real money to spend, and I know you guys are like, you know, struggling. Like you're basically worried that you're not making any real money tonight. So why don't I go and see if they've got money? They might talk to me, right? Because I'm white, right? Good. I mean, she's actually like 1/4 black or something. I think they said in the movie, like her dad was like half black or something. But she goes outside to go talk to this little trio, right? Which is basically just the main vampire and he's the couple that he turned. And she goes up and they're singing this song, they're playing their banjos or whatever, and she sits down with them and he's talking, and there's a really great moment in the middle of this where you just notice that he's drooling down the side of his face and he's got the red eyes, and she gets freaked out and she's like, you know what, I think I'm just going to go back inside. And she's walking towards the camera, and you just see like what looks like him flying up into the air behind her in like a proper like horror movie moment. Really cool. And then it cuts away though. You don't see what happens next. Next time we see her, she comes up to the door, and Cornbread is there acting as the bouncer. and she goes out of her way to say, hey, why don't you invite me in, Cornbread? And I went, oh shit, she's turned. Because and that was like the little like realization. It's like, oh no, she needs an invite now because she's not human anymore. And that was like really exciting. They didn't spell it out. They just gave you that little seed to be like, hey, she's already turned. Things are going to go bad.
And I was like generally surprised too, because I figured like, oh, it seems like she was like, one of the main, love interests for one of the brothers. So I thought like, oh, surely she's not going to be like the first to go, but no.
Well, that's the thing. You don't have to lose the actor in a movie like this when they die because they turn into vampires. Yeah. So she's still around. She's just not the same character anymore. But she goes to Stack and kind of seduces him in the storage room, and ends up biting him, which, like. I mean, it was honestly, it was kind of obvious in the trailer that one of them was going to die, but that's why you have two Michael B. Jordans, because you can have one of them go,
right,
and the other one still gets to be like the unlikely hero type character. So that's fine. That's why you have two. Perfect.
Yeah. So basically, like they walk in on him, and then I forget what they do something that causes her to run out. Do they splash her with like the garlic? Is that it?
Eventually, yeah, Annie does that, but like the first thing that happens is that as soon as Smoke sees that his brother's been bitten on the neck and she's got blood all down her face, he just pulls out two guns and like fires like 10 bullets into her. And then
no hesitation.
And she gets back up, of course, right? And to be fair, him opening fire that quickly is in character, because this entire movie teaches us is that he is absolutely willing to do this. There's even a little bit later on, or maybe it was before this, where he's telling Sammy to like, hey, go back and be a preacher's son. Like, musicians are never happy. You shouldn't be in the life of crime that we were in. He's basically saying, hey, don't live that life. And Sammy's like, yeah, but I love music, and that's all I want to do. Like, you don't get to decide that for me. And if you're going to stop me, you might as well just shoot me now. And he pulls out his gun and points it at him, as if to say, yeah, I will just shoot you now to stop you from going down these bad paths. So he's very much like, that's his character. He like, it's completely in tune for him to do this. And as this is all happening, Annie's kind of paying some attention, and she pours some I think it was her she poured the garlic on. But that is when she pours the garlic on though, where she's like, hey, vampires. After the gunshots though, most of the party leaves. Like, most of the civilians leave the building, and it's mostly our main cast that are left in the inside. Also during this, before like everything really goes down, Cornbread, like, before they realize stuff's going bad, he goes away for a piss and gets attacked. So he gets turned. So one of the big things that kind of, I think, really lets Annie piece things together is that Cornbread wants an invite, and they kind of notice this is weird. Like, wait, why do you want an invite? And she's like, wait a minute, hold on a second, let's not be too rash here. You've been coming in and out all day. Why do you need an invite? He's like, well, it's just polite. Right, I don't want to come in uninvited, and it makes no sense why he would feel like he needs an invite when he's supposed to be working there tonight. But so I really liked that. I liked how they played with that, and Annie piecing it all together.
Yeah, there's this it like instantly created like, good bits of tension, because obviously we as the audience know like, oh, okay, yeah, he's turned, and then trying to say, okay, are they gonna let him in? And then, but I like that they're all like responding very smartly, and then, like you said, them kind of slowly figuring out like, wait a minute, yeah, this doesn't make sense. And then I did think it was like a little like stupid though, when he's like, all right, well, just give me my money, then I'll leave. And I was like, well, don't actually stick your hand out, just like throw the money on the ground or something. But I mean, again though, that made for like a fun scene though.
Yeah, and again, Smoke shoots him in the face, but he just gets back up. Actually, you were misremembering earlier. Now I'm thinking about it. Hailee Steinfeld does not get the garlic water poured in her face. Okay. That is Stack when he gets back up.
Stack.
Because
that's right. Yeah, because they leave him there in the room. They think he's dead, and then eventually he gets up and.
Yeah, well, they lock him in the room, and there's a whole bit where he's banging on the door, and Annie's like, "That's not your brother." And the reason why I'm remembering this now is because it's not until she pours the garlic water on him that she's like, oh, they're vampires. Because the entire conversation when Cornbread's trying to get in, she thinks it's a Hague. She's, so Hailee Steinfeld's already ran out by this point. All of that's playing out. And then Stack finally, gets up and he attacks but runs off. And also at some point during all this, the Asian husbands went outside as well to go get the car. But of course, he's not come back in quite some time. So they're all like, wait a minute, this is weird. And the wife wants to go out and get him. So, like, at this point, it's like, okay, we've got a siege movie. And we also very quickly find out, that, seemingly, that the vampires turned every single person who left that building. Because they've got an army out there of people just waiting to come back in.
I forget when we get it, but there is like a pretty haunting scene where like, the main vampire, like when he starts to do his music but now he has like this whole like vampire army that's like all dancing around him and stuff. And I don't know, it was like a nice contrast to like earlier when everyone was like dancing, to their own music and they like seemed like so happy and stuff. And like now they're dancing again, but it's like I don't know, this weird demonic way.
Yeah. I think a lot of this stuff is really fun, especially when we're playing with this idea of we can't let them inside, we just don't invite them. And it's like, and I was thinking, okay, but so how does this become a threat again, right? How do we get the threat of them actually getting inside? They do play with the idea at one point that maybe one of them's already a vampire because they find what they think is a body, although it turns out to just be a drunk guy who was lying in a pool of like booze or something. Yeah. But they actually like make everyone eat some garlic to find out if it's them. And the married woman that Sammy was like getting cozy with, she's like, I hate garlic, I don't want to eat it. And then eventually Smoke has to like point a gun at her and says, eat the garlic or I shoot you. Like, these are your options. But no one. So it's a very test the blood in the thing type scene. But no one's a vampire. Everyone turns out okay. Ultimately, the way they get back inside, which is really smart, is that the main vampire comes up and starts talking to the Asian woman and says, "Hey, like your husband's turned. Like he's here and he shows up again, and I know all about your daughter. Like, let us in, or we'll just go to town and we'll turn her, and we'll kill her." And it's this idea that it kind of puts them in this predicament where, okay, they can just stay up in here until sunrise, but the vampires could send like 2 vampires to town and turn everyone in the town, and like, okay, what life have they all got to go back to? So I actually really like the position that they get put into here, where I actually think it's believable that the Asian woman here would actually choose to escalate this into a fight just to keep all the vampires like busy, because she goes to want to invite them in eventually, and Smoke like covers her mouth and she ends up biting his hand so she can yell out, come on inside and like, get your asses kicked or whatever it is. But it's like she specifically invites everyone in, so the door opens and the chaos ensues. And this is the part where I think it did feel a little bit rushed. Like, once they get inside, I think if I was to make a suggestion here, is that maybe they shouldn't have had as many vampires, because it felt maybe like too much of a war scene as opposed to like specific whatever. But the one-on-one parts were good. There was some really haunting imagery here of like the couple were on fire together, the Asian couple, during this scene. There were various other little bits that were happening and all that. Obviously Sammy's running away, Smoke's fighting Stack, and like that's going down. Like, just all this chaos kind of happening all at once.
Delroy Lindo kind of has this like big showdown where like he like cuts his arm, so it's like spraying blood as like the vampires are like all coming to get him. That's like really cool. Yeah,
which he does to let other people get a chance to get away. Yeah. He's not just doing that because he's like, oh, I'm done with this world now. Everyone betrayed me. He's not having that moment.
Yeah. It's very badass though. And then I forget who, but someone bites Annie. So
yes,
she's put in the position because she told Smoke, was it earlier?
Yes, Smoke. Yes.
I that's one of the reasons I need to see it again is because I feel like I've got the the Jordans confused from time to time. But like earlier she said like, oh, if they get me, like, promise that you'll stake me through the heart, like don't let me be trapped. I forget. I do think they give an explanation as to like the difference between like vampires or whatever. Like, I think something about is it like there's some monsters where it's like they swap the soul or whatever, or somewhere it's like your soul's like trapped in
Yeah,
there.
no, I alluded to this earlier where I said no. They specifically make it clear here that vampires like trap the person's soul in the body with the demon.
Okay, yeah,
and it stays there. So that's like kind of horrific, and the only way to free it is to kill the vampire.
yeah.
So yeah.
So then, like, yeah, she's dead. And then, yeah, it is a little bit of a blur. Like, it's all fun stuff, but like you said, it feels like it's just kind of like, making its way to move to the climax.
Yeah, it just feels like it's all one big rush as opposed to like maybe more of a gradual thing, which I think I was expecting more of, I guess. But lots of big moments towards the end where the main vampire is going after Sammy, who's like run out of the building at this point, and they end up in the water. And
that's always been his like goal, basically. Because I think at one point he even is trying to barter, like, all right, well, we'll just take Sammy if like you want to give him up to us, like we'll let the rest live.
Well, specifically,
he's basically like his music they want.
Yeah, he specifically says that we were drawn to your music. I could hear your voice like from out here. He makes it very clear that he wants to rob that. Like that's something he wants in his collective, his vampire collective, is Sammy's special music ability. And again, it's this idea of like, hey, with talent, with skill comes this danger of it being exploited. And that's kind of part of the reason why Smoke was trying to convince him to give up that life and just not do it. And that, to be honest, that's kind of the heart of the movie, is ultimately like the decision that he makes at the end about this. Like, does he give this up? Does he just become the son of a preacher? So on and so on. But we have this sort of final showdown. Smoke ends up saving him, and there's a whole bit here where the sun comes up and all the vampires burn in the sun. So it's a very haunting image of all these people on fire. Doesn't pull any punches, looks good. So you've got that, and it kind of ties up with the start of the movie where Sammy goes back to the church where his dad's the preacher, which we got introduced early on, and his dad was very much, you dance with the devil, you play that devil's music, you should be at church with your father, blah 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 blah. He's kind of that type of character. So they do a whole thing here with kind of the upbeat ending to the movie. We'll talk about the Smoke stuff as well, obviously, but the upbeat ending to Sammy's character is that he's still holding the broken neck of the guitar that he used to defend himself because he had to hit the vampire with it. He is told by his father to drop it, as a symbolic thing. Drop the guitar, son, and embrace the preacher lifestyle, right? In front of the congregation of the church.
And it is kind of funny that it's kind of funny that, yeah, his first reaction is like, drop the guitar, and not like, holy shit, what happened to you? Why are you covered in blood? Like, oh my god, like, do you need help?
Yeah, he's got scratches all down his face. Yeah, he looks like beat to shit. And his dad's like,
this is like,
come to the Lord. You need the Lord in yourself, Jesus, son. Anyway, so yeah, the big sort of like ending for him is his dad's like saying, hey, drop the guitar, and then it cuts to him back in the car holding it tightly. And it's kind of this like spiritual thing where he's not giving up that life. And then it cuts to like for the credits to start. You see him in 1992 as an old man, and he's like 80s or whatever, still playing blues music with modern musicians. To the point where I was like, is this based on like loosely on a real, not that a real person ever went through the vampire thing, but just this idea that there's maybe a musician that this was loosely based on in terms of like someone who was alive around this time. I don't know, but it was like a really upbeat kind of ending of like, no, he stuck with the music because it meant something to him. This idea that, it was this release and it made him feel free, and that's all he ever wanted to do, and he kept that, regardless of all the opposition, of all the people who try to take it from him, of even good people in his life who try to convince him that he shouldn't go down this path, he stuck with it anyway, and seemingly is much happier for it. And that was like a good heart to the movie, I thought. Don't get me wrong, I do also enjoy seeing the clan be mowed down with machine gun fire. That's also fun, yeah. Which is what the other part of the ending is.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar who's playing the older version of him, but I think it is like some like well-known like jazz musician or blues musician or something.
I suspect it is. It makes a lot of sense. It would be.
But it seemed like some people were like, "Oh, it's cool that they got him for the movie." And then I guess, but that's probably a good way, or before, if we want to talk more about the the clan massacre, I guess just to finish off like Sammy's story, I guess if we want to go into the scene that you didn't see, um, yeah, like there's just a little bit after the credits where they show him like basically sitting down for a drink at the club. Um, and I think the bartender son is like, "Hey, there are these two people here that wanted to come in and like say hi to you. I told them we're closed, but they offered me like $200. Is that okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's fine. Send them on in." And then yeah, it ends up being Stack and what was Hailee Steinfeld's character's name?
Mary, which was not mentioned, but yeah,
Mary.
we've just been talking about Hailee Steinfeld the whole time, but yeah, Mary.
Yeah. So it's them. They come in and with like very 90s appropriate attire. It looked really cool. But basically they ask him how he's doing, and I think you get like a little flashback where you showed Smoke and Stack, and basically Smoke decided to let him live. He's like, well, with the promise that he basically promises to never come after Sammy again, like to always leave him alone. So and like they just kind of have like this nice, quick little chat, and like he offers him like, because obviously he's very old now, so he's like, this doesn't have to be the end for you. You're getting old, but the offer's on the table if you want us to turn you. And he's like, no, I think that it's better this way. And I think he probably says something like it means more if you only get this one shot at life, or something like that. But it's a very nice ending, and it was it was like weirdly like touching, like seeing him and Mary like as vampires, and it's kind of like, oh, it's nice that they're, I don't know, like still together, but and like also that they're not like crazy bloodthirsty, like, oh my god, we're gonna attack you. It's like, no, like we kept our end of the deal. Like I'm sure they've done other heinous stuff, but they're like, oh yeah, like we kept our bargain, and we've been watching you and stuff. So it was actually like kind of sweet.
Does that mean they were hiding under a blanket when all the other vampires were being set on fire by the sunlight?
I guess so. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a shame I didn't get to see this scene. It sounds cool, because I did kind of love the cut to 1992 and just seeing him as an old man still loving music. I thought that was really cool. The idea that a couple, because obviously I didn't know anyone survived from the vampire side, but the idea that a couple of them are still young because they're vampires, showing up and saying hello is kind of interesting. I look forward to seeing that when I get to watch it at home. The other stuff though at the end with Smoke is that basically when the vampires were trying to like convince themselves to come in, the vampire says, "Hey, this couple that I like turned, like they're part of the clan, and their uncle's the guy that sold you this place, and they were always going to come back, and like basically this was like a kill box. Like they wanted you to gather everyone here so they could just massacre everyone. Like if I didn't come, they were going to come for you next anyway. So why not just become immortal and be part of my old group?" So at the end of the movie, and it was sort of teased when things like when shit goes down, Smoke is like, "Hey, oh shit, we didn't bring in the box from the truck." So at the end of the movie, when the sun's up and he's telling Sammy to go take the car, he pulls out this like box or this like crate from the back of the vehicle, and he opens it, and there's like a sniper rifle and a Tommy gun, and it's like, oh shit, like he's getting ready to like be a one-man army. So we get this sequence where the guy from the start of the movie and like maybe a dozen like other white guys show up with guns, and they're like basically just joking about how they're going to like go hunting or whatever, but Smoke's in like the tree line with the rifle and starts like taking them out one by one, and eventually comes out with a Tommy gun and just kills all of them. And eventually it's just the guy from the start of the movie who's like left, and he's lying on the ground because he's been shot, and he's not really like saying much. He's like, go F yourself or whatever. But Smoke has this kind of hallucination because he's dying, because he took a bullet in the middle of all this, and he sees Annie with his baby like sitting there, and he realizes he's going. And it's actually quite darkly funny the way that halfway through this scene where he's clearly dying, the clan guy's like, hey, I'm still here, and Michael B. Jordan just turns and just unloads the Tommy gun into him and just like riddles him with bullets, and then dies by like going with his wife and child into the afterlife. It's a nice moment. I think the other thing that I really liked about it is I mentioned this earlier, but it's when he's prepping, I think, or maybe it's when he's killing the clan. I can't remember exactly. I'd have to go back and check the scene. But this is when you get all the little flashbacks to the day of setting up the club. And it's like, hey, this is how much it meant to them. Not just those two, the brothers, but like the entire community and how everyone pitched in. And now they're all dead. They're all gone. And he's like left alone. So there's a lot of anger in him. There's a lot of like reasons to be mad at everything around him and kind of like motivate what he's about to do. I thought that was really affecting and kind of hit really hard. It's
absolutely,
it's an interesting movie because like the horror stuff's pretty good, and it does feel like a big part of the movie. But at the same time, I'd argue that the best parts of the movie are stuff that works regardless of the horror. And I think that's where you maybe kind of feel that there was definitely a lot of things that wanted to be said here. Obviously the setting and this idea of like comparing the vampires to something like the Clan or whatever is a big part of it, but also just this idea of like music being this escape from all of it, but also being this thing that can be a danger because it's music's music, it's loud, it's a beacon, it's like, hey, you can't enjoy music without kind of announcing to people in the vicinity that you are enjoying it. You're kind of painting like a big target almost by doing so.
Yeah, I mean, there's many layers to it. I feel like, yeah, it has so much to say. And it's all very satisfying. I love the horror elements to it, but honestly, if you took it out, I would still love this as just a movie of like, yeah, people trying to, like set something up and do their whole thing. I think most people can relate to, anyone that's tried to like do something creative, in their life. There's so much excitement in, like building something, especially when you're doing it with a community of people. And then, I think that's what makes like those scenes of seeing them like setting up and stuff like so, bittersweet. Because most people can relate to like, yeah, like that one great day, like that one great party, or that time we like got everyone together and did like this one like fun thing. So it's very relatable. It has a lot to say, but it's just just really good filmmaking. And I never like once noticed the runtime. Like it all feels very absorbing. Like from the start of the movie, just being thrust into these characters' lives. Like I could have easily watched just a whole movie of them, setting this stuff up. So it's just good characters, good filmmaking. It all gels together really well. So just extremely happy with this movie. I'm glad, it seems to be getting so much attention and lots of raves and stuff. Did you see the thing where, like, there's some deal Coogler made where, like, I think the movie, like, he gets the rights to it after like 25 years or something. It seems like they're making a big deal about it because it's like something that like hadn't been done before, where like from the start he's already has a deal in place, like to where the movie will basically belong to him. After so many years, which which I feel like there's almost like a meta aspect of it too, because like so much of the movie is about like owning your your craft, your creativeness or whatever. So it's awesome that he's also getting to do that. It's I don't know, it's early in the year, but I mean it feels like this is gonna be.
Whoa, Tim, we've not done our top 10 of 2024 yet. Shut up, we're not talking about 2025. Okay,
all I'm saying is this is gonna be one that's hard to beat. I don't know. I'm in a good mood now, and like we were talking before about like all the trailers we were seeing. Like I'm like this movie got me excited, like pumped. Be like, oh yeah, like maybe I don't know. Like I'm hopeful that this is gonna be a good year. Hopefully it's not just all downhill from here.
I know. Megan 2 is coming.
She's back.
She's back and she's ready to, I don't know, dance, kick some ass. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, the movie is something special. It's kind of it's in a lot of ways, because Coogler had been doing the Marvel movies for a few years, it kind of was easy to forget just how good he was, because Creed is such a special movie. And this feels like it's really personal. It feels like it's a lot of creative vision. It feels like it's got something to say. It feels like everyone is on board and is here to, and like a lot of horror movies, like there's a lot of real horror baked in there. You know, like whenever it threatens the clan, it's like, this is a real thing. This is a horrific real thing that you can relate to the horror movie stuff that it's doing with the vampires, but it's very much like they're both going hand in hand. And part of me thinks, yeah, like if you took out the vampires and you just said, no, it's the clan that comes and starts, like, you know, ambushing the building at night, like, would it be a bad movie? No, it'd probably be a great movie with them trying to, like, defend, like, everyone and, you know, keep the place alive. Like that could be just as compelling. But obviously there's a lot of fun to this as well, to the vampire stuff, because the vampire stuff, in a lot of ways, the vampire side of this feels very old school. It feels like an 80s, like, Vampire Siege movie to me in a lot of ways. Just the way it's kind of set up, the way that it doesn't necessarily want to, like, dwell on doing a lot of stuff with the vampires. It teases some interesting lore. It kind of uses it in an interesting way with the main vampire, who tries to, like, manipulate them by saying certain things, bringing up and trying exploiting and saying, hey, I'm not so bad because, hey, this town was against you anyway. Like, you know, I'm a release, I'm something else. Like, I can give you a better tomorrow. And it's just someone else who's here to exploit. It's someone else who's here to take what's theirs and go on from there. So I think there's so much in this movie to really appreciate. And then it's the filmmaking, like, you know, nothing gets me hard as much as a good oneer, Tim, right? Let's just be frank about it, right? Okay. Nothing gets my juices flowing like a good oneer. And this movie has a few good oneers. You know, the one that really stands out is being super creative and, like, really kind of out there and doing something very different. And then, but even just some of the earlier stuff where there's just like, no, this is just going to show how lively the town is. It's going to give you this connective tissue that feels like, oh no, this is an alive town. We're in this street. This is real. Everyone feels real. The characters feel layered. Honestly, any small critiques that have been had, it's hard to kind of, you know, like, we're ready to, like, do our final bits. I think we're sitting here praising. So, Tim, what was your scene of the movie?
So yeah, I mean, yeah, you mentioned it, I mentioned it, but I mean, the oneer where the music's playing, everyone's dancing, throughout the ages, is just so well done, so evocative, so beautiful and engaging. It's really hard not to choose that. Like, again, there's so much in the movie that I could point to and that was, like, great scenes, but that is, like, such a standout, so memorable, and again, so unique. I can't really think of anything like that, and it caught me off guard for a second because I was like, "Wait, what is going on? Why are we seeing?" And then, like, once it takes a second. Then, like, once I realize what they're doing, it's like, "Oh, this is, like, really cool." So, yeah, go with that one.
I mean, I hate to be boring, but yeah, it's that scene. Like, I think for a lot of people, that's going to be the standout scene of the movie. So, yeah. Yeah, easy pick in this case. There's a lot of good sequences in this. I think some of the horror moments are handled really well. I do like the overall vibe of the vampires. There's a lot of good setup stuff early on with the characters, but it's that scene. That is the standout scene of the movie. MVP. This is maybe a bit lopsided because Michael B. Jordan's getting to play two characters, but I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah, no, it's tricky.
Because I think there's definitely an argument for Sammy, because Sammy at the end is the heart of the movie, because he ultimately makes the choice to stick with the thing he loves, regardless of the dangers. He's not willing to give it up just because there's bad people in the world that might try and exploit it, you know?
Yeah, I think I think that's who I'm leaning towards. I mean, yeah, it's hard to deny that the Jordans are are very captivating. Um, and but yeah, I think I was really impressed with like Sammy. And especially considering like it seems to be like his first big major role. He really knocked it out. Then he also brought like the heart and soul like in the music. So I'll give it up for him. But it's an incredibly well cast movie. Like there really isn't anyone that's slumming it. Like they're all doing such a great job.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning towards Sammy, but there's not really a weak link. Like I think everyone offers something, and sadly, I don't think we've talked about all of them as much as they should have been talked about because like they all have moments. Like the wife character that Sammy ends has moments with, like she has a very memorable like performance because she sings at one point and she does a whole bit where she's like kind of crawling on the stage, and it's actually one of the few visuals I remember from the trailer very distinctly is her crawling on the stage. But just a little thing like that just kind of goes a long way to keeping these people distinct in my mind. But I'm probably going to go Sammy as well, although obviously Jordan is great in the movie for sure. So, all right, Tim, what is your final rating for Sinners?
I mean, this was just a delight from start to finish. I mean, it's a good story with great performances and great filmmaking. So there really isn't much to criticize it about. Um, I'm I'm gonna go very high and give it a 9. Yeah, I mean, I think like you said, it is kind of like one of those rare movies where it's just like everything is just singing and it's kind of capturing like it kind of feels like like a moment in the zeitgeist, and it all works so well. I can even see it going up a little bit, like on rewatch or something. Like because I was wondering, like, should I go with like a 9.5 even? But I'll stick with a 9 now. But I'm excited to watch it again. I'm excited to like show people like I went by myself to see it, so like I'll be excited when it's on like home video I can watch with my wife and stuff. It's just a great bit of business. Very happy.
Yeah, I was wrestling with what to give this. I think I'm going to settle on an 8.5. I don't think I'm going to quite give it the 9. I think it might rise to that in time with like more viewings and that just to sort of like growing to like appreciate it more, knowing exactly what it is and kind of like peeling back the layers a bit more with more viewings. But the character building is excellent. It's got a very clear creative vision the entire time. The horror stuff is pretty well handled outside of maybe a little bit of the big climax feeling a little rushed, but there's a nice heart to the story at the end, and it's got a lot to say, and it's got a couple of really memorable filmmaking sequences as well. So obviously it's going to be up there for the year. So Sinners, everyone. There you go. So I won't say what's coming next time because it's a little up in there depending on what theatre trips happen in the next bit. I will say that if the theatre trip does not happen, then there's already an episode in the tank that can go out as soon as we don't have the next one ready. So either way, there'll be an episode next week, not to fear. But yes, we'll see you for that. I did say earlier you can support us on Patreon. You get bonus content. We do a bonus episode, which typically is monthly on Patreon. It has been off a little bit whilst Tim had to move because of the fires. He's still living at the in-laws. We did get one out recently, though. We did get a Patreon exclusive episode out in the last couple of weeks. And it won't be too long before the next one either. But there's also bonus content for all the other movie shows. So please do go check out Patreon if you want to help support and keep the show coming. Both this show, but also all those other shows on Male Fuzz Movies. Screams After Midnight is joined by Atomic Cinema Experiment, and The Collector's Cut is the other movie podcast. And then there's all the TV reviews that I do over on Male Fuzz TV. But that is pretty much us, though. So thank you for joining us. It's been a fairly beefy episode, so we'll get out of your hair. If you somehow watched all of this and haven't seen Sinners, go see Sinners, and we will see you next time. So thank you very much. Keep watching scary movies. Goodbye, everyone.